Thanks for tuning in to the Trap House Podcast. Now a quick word about our sponsors. We have Duke Traps. Check out duketraps.com. Duke manufactures over 40 different models of cage traps, coil spring traps, long spring traps, and body grip style traps. Also, my personal favorite, they have the Duke dog proofs. They come powder coated, perfect on the line. Check out duketraps.com and you won't be disappointed. We have J3 Outdoors, maker of the Hags Bracket, all American made products. Check out their website, j3o.com, and you will not be disappointed. They have everything from your bait holders, your spring clips, your tail hooks, the universal locks, the list goes on. Especially if you're a water trapper, you want to check this website out. That's j3o.com. We also have Top Lot Stretcher Company with us. Check out their website at toplotstretcherco.com. Top Lot Stretcher Company handles all your wooden stretcher needs, along with pelt handling supplies and trapping supplies. Check out their website at toplotstretcherco.com. And representing all the girls in the trapping world, we have Trapping Girl Inc. with us. Check out their website, trappinggirlinc.com. They have awesome apparel for the females. There's also kids apparel, lures and baits, things you could use out in the field. Check out their website, trappinggirlinc.com. And there's only one true way to start out the trap line in the morning, and that's with a nice hot cup of coffee from traplinecoffee.com. Check out their numerous collections. They have Trapline Blend, a Kodiak Blend, and my favorite, a Cherry Red Blend, all available at traplinecoffee.com. Also, be sure to check out Weeby Knives. That's weebyknives.com. They have skinning knives, fleshing knives, all your fur handling tools. Check out weebyknives.com. And last but not least, Hoosier Trapper Supply. Check out our website, HoosierTrapperSupply.com, home of the Top Dog Predator Bait and Jet Fuel Predator Lure. We got all your trapping needs, trapping scents and baits, deer scent, and apparel. Check out HoosierTrapperSupply.com. All right, welcome to the Trap House Podcast. Got a great guest today, good friend, good buddies with us, Jim Tate.
We've been trying for like 22 years to get him on here.
Yeah.
It's been several years. It's a long time to make him.
We're always busy. You know, all of us, all three of us are busy.
We just figured it'd always be better to do this one in person for sure. And he's in our neck of the woods right now, so we were able to sit here and let's get Jim's story. You know, let's lure maker. You know, a lover of trapping.
Yes, absolutely.
Past rodeo guy.
Rodeo, yeah, we want the full story. So if you could just kind of start at the beginning, how you got involved in trapping in the outdoors, and to how, you know, where you are today, selling lure and things like that.
I started trapping on my grandparents' farm when I was 9. First animal I caught was a barn rat. And, you know, from there, growing up, I always trapped, even when the fur prices, let's see, right out of high school, I long lined in 1986. I bought a brand new pickup with my fur money. And then the bottom dropped out of fur. Well, so I kind of got into the bull riding business for a long time. I rode bulls professionally in the International Professional Rodeo Association for 10 years. And at that time, I thought it was a good idea. Not so much anymore. I heard all over, but trapping seems to make it better. And you know, now trapping kind of gets in your craw and you can't get rid of it. It's almost, I hate to even put it with this, but it's almost like a drug, you know, or alcohol or something to an alcoholic. You get attached to it and you just can't get rid of it. And I really love trapping, and I know you guys do. You guys go on your trips. I go on a trip, well, twice a year. I go to northern Michigan, usually the opening of coyote season. I go up there and stay in my camper for a month, and then come home. I buy a little fur, do a little bit of this and that, and then come February, I got a bunch of hunting clubs that hire me to trap down in Mississippi. I go down there for a month. I've been doing that for 13 years now. And I love getting out of the cold. We had some 84-degree weather this year, so I really enjoyed myself. I came home with a suntan. My wife was a little upset about that, but we had a ball,
Yeah.
So.
I can, 50 years of trapping, I can't get out of my system.
That's right.
That's right. I mean, once you're hooked, it's tough to get out. So
Yep. Charlie and I have done a lot of teaching together, and teaching the summit and a couple other deals at Charlie's convention at Hoosier Trapper Supply there, and I have fun coming down to that every year. And Charlie and I have a lot of the same beliefs. We've probably been at it for about the same amount of time. So when we do go to teach in a lot of our sets, well, even Justin's, because I mean, all three of us just kind of click, and
Yeah. It just works that way.
it just works. And you won't always do that with partners. A lot of times,
Different ideas.
when you get
different
a partner,
approaches.
you'll bump heads with them. And I've had a lot of partners go south with me. And there's some things that they do different. And if you don't, if you're not all on the same page, it just kind of makes the trip not as pleasurable or productive, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So if we can get a little more specific, Fur Takers sponsors what we call a Trapper Summit at Hoosier Trapper Supply, and it's usually like the end of July, the 1st of August. It's a Saturday, day-long class, hands-on instruction and hands-on class. And Jim has come down and helped with that class, helped instruct that, and which we greatly appreciate.
yeah, I'll be in there.
And normally he makes our fall rendezvous as well, the last Saturday of September.
Unfortunately, I can't come every year because our one convention in the UP, it falls on the same weekend, and they can't differ in days. So I try to get to Charlie's every time I can, but I have to still stay in my home state a little bit, to support my guys.
Right, exactly. Yeah, Jim's from Michigan.
Yeah.
I'm not, so. But specifically, I think that we, as far as being kind of on the same page in our methods, is you put the trap, if you're making a dirt hole set, the trap is close to the dirt hole. We're not 8 inches back and 3 inches over and all this.
That's right.
We're guarding the hole. We're guarding the bait hole.
Yep. And that's pretty tough because for a lot of years, people have the belief from other higher up coyote trapping guys that they want that trap back 9 and over 3 either way. And I've tried that method, and I thought we'll try it. And with having snow on the ground in northern Michigan, usually when I'm trapping, I see where the tracks are, and a lot of people claim that all these animals enter from a 45-degree angle. Well, it's a living, breathing animal. They can do anything they want. If they want to come over your backing, I've had them come in from the back before, and having your trap right up tight to the hole, if you've got a good enough product in the hole, and I'm not plugging my own stuff, I mean a lot of guys.
You can do this is what it's for.
Okay, well, I don't want it to turn into a commercial like that, but anyways, you if it's a good enough product in the hole and you've got your trap up there, you're gonna catch them, and I think if you get back and over, you're missing gray fox, you're missing red fox, and who knows, you might even have a mink come in and work your set, which that happens.
Or maybe even an otter.
Maybe even an otter, yeah, when you're close to the water, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you want to be tight to that hole, it's my belief. And Charlie's belief, and Justin's.
And I think the consistency of it. So basically, when I think you can correct me if I'm wrong. So we're making the same set
Right.
for whatever we're trapping, whether it be when we're making a dirt hole set, whether it's foxes, coyotes, bobcats. It's generally made the same way. We're not varying by species. So
Well, and Charlie's right by that, but I'm not a cookie cutter trapper. I don't go in and make all my dirt hole. I don't go in and make all dirt holes and that.
Right.
I kind of figure out what kind of set I want to put there. And to tell you the truth, I use a lot of flat sets.
Yeah.
But still, and a flat set is nothing more than an unexposed hole. Whether your bait and lure is up under a rock or a log, or whether it's in a poke hole in a clump of weeds. My belief on that is still you want that trap tight to the attractor, and it's just the way it is for me. I mean, and that's the way, and for Charlie and Justin too.
So I've said a lot of times, if I'm going to have a non-committed coyote where he's in front of the trap and he just doesn't want to fully commit,
Yep.
I'll take that any day over having a trap that's back too far and tracks between the trap and the hole.
That would bug me to no end.
Yeah.
To see tracks where you miss. And don't get me wrong, a friend of ours, one of our trapping buddies, he put out and Justin put the video out for Tom Morlock, and a lot of that, most of the footage was done with my bait and lure and some of Charlie's and some of Justin's. And we've seen some stuff on that video that as trappers, you're not supposed to see. You're not supposed to know that a coyote came into that set 3 times before you caught it. I mean, that's just the way that it's trapping. I mean, if it was, if it was easy, it'd be called catching, I guess, or something else. I don't know, but we're trappers, and we've seen some stuff on the trail cam video footage that really blew our mind, For instance, one set that Tom had made, a bobcat kept visiting the set. Well, he was kind of stepping off to the side, putting his nose in the hole, and there was a stick there that Tom had on a branch for a backing. And there was a stick there, and every time the bobcat would come up to put his nose in the hole, that stick would punch him in the nose. So he wasn't stepping on the trap. I said, Tom, when him and I sitting at the dinner table down south, I said, Tom, when you go in there tomorrow, break that branch off. And sure enough, within a couple of days, he caught the cat,
and that's a very good point, because a lot of times we're 5, 6, in your case, 6+ feet tall, and you got to remember that animal is close to the ground, and just sometimes the slightest thing
absolutely
will make them do, put their foot in a different place.
And it could be something as simple as a blade of grass,
right.
a branch, whatever. But that's just something we figure out as trappers. We like to kind of figure out what makes that animal tick and what makes him do things. But that video, I'll tell you, it really, in some cases, it might have hurt my feelings. Not really, but because it was very eye-opening how many times animals actually visit the set, and they're interested. And he might leave for 5 minutes and come back, and
that always gets me, because what are they doing? They're not in the they're not in the camera then.
That's the stuff that I'm seeing. We don't need to know.
Yeah.
And as a trapper, I want to know. I lay in bed at night thinking, I wonder what he was doing when he went over there,
Yeah.
You don't need to know that. When you come up to a set and you see coyote tracks on your set, you don't need to know that. Just drive on. He'll be back. I had one this year that dug me out, and it was a regular dirt hole set, and I came in, put the trap back, covered it up, and the next day I had him. It was just, you gotta just play it's almost like playing chess sometimes,
Yeah. But there's one thing I always tell myself, that without a camera and without you really don't know if it was the same coyote. I mean, because there's a lot of speculation that people make, or a lot of conclusions that people draw, that it may or may not necessarily be true.
And let me say on that, the one that dug me out that I'm bragging when I said I caught him the next day, I have no clue if it was the same coyote, but I like to humble myself and say, that was him.
Mission accomplished. Yeah.
Sleep better that way.
You sleep better that way, that's for darn sure.
I mean, we got a guy that he can tell you the color of the coyote, male, female. He can tell you all of that and there's no camera. I mean,
Yeah.
he's just like
You can tell by the track.
he's
See the
got
track?
six
That
cents.
coyote's got a white tip on it. It's the alpha, and it was here 10 minutes ago.
See, you're not talking about Tom Morlock, are you?
No, because he'd have a camera on it.
Yeah, because Tom can tell you things like that, and he's pretty sharp.
Yeah. No, we're just I mean, you've run into guys like that.
I have.
I mean, they just tell you very specifically.
And they don't really know.
They don't know. No, they don't.
Yeah.
Tom does though.
He does.
Yep.
So
He's pretty sharp.
yeah, well, Tom Morlock's what's it called, Trapline Trail Cams.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's been on the show.
Yeah,
You can
he's
go
been-
back and watch past episodes. Tom's a wealth of knowledge, great trapper, knows what
Yes.
he's talking about. We,
Yep.
good friends. So
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He's completely legitimate. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
now I know you're not that type of guy, but it's okay for this particular podcast. If you want to boast a little bit about your lure and bait, go for it because this is your chance.
Well, I own Wolfen Bait and Lure Company, and I started, I guess, when I was about 11 years old, messing around with it. And of course, all my trapping buddies at school and stuff, they seen how good I did, and they'd started buying it from me. And this is like at 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. And I went, of course, later on in life, I went to work for General Motors. I worked there for 5 years at Buick City and Flint. And they decided they were going to shut the lights off. So basically I was devastated. I went home and I told the wife, I said, now what? You go from making $1,000 a week to, nothing. She said, my wife, she still works at General Motors. She said, you know what to do, And that's what I've been doing ever since. Been selling my bait and lure. And I've got 4 different baits, and which I'm always trying to come up with something new, but I like to stick with the ones that have worked for me in the past. If I'm selling at a convention or a show or something, if it's on my table, I've caught my target animals on it, or it wouldn't be on that table. And I cut all my own glands and do all that stuff. But anyways, there's a lot of really good bait and lure makers out there. Charlie and Justin have some really good products at Hoosier Trapper Supply, and I don't want anybody just using my stuff. I want them to have change-ups in their bag, because there's going to come a time when stuff, if you use it year after year after year, the same thing. I mean, you might have an old one there that you pinched before or something, and that happens. They get wise to it after a while, so it's nice to have a change up in your bag. And anyways,
And you make lures as well.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep, I make lure. I save all my coyote urine from down south. I make sure it's really clean and preserved right, so it stays, it doesn't get rancid and spoiled. And like I said, everything I do while I'm down there trapping, I do a lot of live market trapping for the coyotes. And so I don't have to skin any coyotes while I'm down there. My bobcats and my otters and stuff like that I bring home. And usually I put them up and send them off to the tannery. And everybody loves tanned fur. And now I've got fur processors and everything calling me wanting to buy stuff. So it's just, the fur market might not be that great, but it's turned into something else, another way to sell fur. And it's kind of funny how it works, but I ain't going nowhere. I'm not, the animal damage control guys are still buying my coyote stuff, and not just a little bit. I mean, I sell a little bit of bait and lure. Then when I go to shows, especially the bigger shows, the National and Fur Takers, and I do pretty good at those shows. So, but yeah.
Yeah, it's.
And you have a website, right, for everyone that wants to check it out?
I do not.
Okay.
I don't ship. I refuse to ship. I've been shut down. I've got a couple of my lures that have skunk in them, and before marijuana became legal in Michigan, this is something I really don't want to get into, but they accused me of shipping marijuana, and because I had some of my skunky lures, and it's, in a box this big and it smells like skunk. And of course they want to know what's in that box, and
Yeah.
it'll shut down post office, and it's cost me a lot of money in the past, so I don't ship anymore. And I know that's crazy from somebody doing it, but I would rather do a face-to-face business with somebody. If they come up to me at a show or at a convention, I can tell them how I use the stuff and what I've had luck doing with it, and it just seems to work better for me. I'm not out to have sell it to every company in the world to sell it for me. I don't want to do that. I kind of have my own cult following, and for lack of a better word, cult following. And it just works for me. I mean, I've got a pretty good reputation, not reputation, but with my client or customer base, and they trust me and they use my stuff, and I do what I do.
We've had, I don't think we had any this year. Calls from postal inspectors,
Right. Right.
And,
I know all about that.
And most of them were like, I can tell we got to call you, but I can tell by the return address that I know what's up.
Yeah, right.
And most of them are pretty cool. Once in a while you get one that's like, thinks he's Barney Fife, but
Yep.
overall most of them are pretty decent. But,
Yeah.
but we've had those calls because we do ship, and
Yep.
so, but I know it.
Yeah, and we've tried everything to keep the smell down. Everybody says, well, I know what'll keep the smell down if you vacuum pack it. Man, we've tried that, and I'm telling you, the smell of skunk is just, especially in a real neutral environment like a post office, is just, wow,
Yeah, you can't. Plastic will not contain.
No, it will not.
Skunk.
Even glass. I mean, I've tried double glass in it and putting coffee in there and other stuff. And yeah, for the most part it'll work, but you still get that hint of skunk. And that's where they think it's marijuana, because it's just a hint of skunk. So, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, and we've had the postal employees that want to make up the rules as they go along, which
That's
they have
right.
no authority to do that. But,
Right. Yeah, I ended up having to hire a lawyer and everything for the one. It cost me a lot of money.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't ship. It's not because, and not only that, I don't want to sit home and make lure. I make enough to get me through the year and to sell to my customers. And I like to go trapping just as much as you guys do. I'm not going to sit home and make lure. I'm sorry. I'm just not. When I'm ready to do that, then we'll go ahead and release it to the big companies or whatever. But I'm not ready to do that yet. I like to trap. So
Yeah, and we run into that because we are very busy, and it's difficult to get out of the shop in when you're supposed to be out having a good time.
that's right.
And that's why we typically go on trips mid-January and on, because
It's
it's starting to
after
wind
travel
down,
season,
wind down a little bit, so.
Deer season, taxidermy with us.
And
Right.
We can't, there's
traffic
no way
supplies,
for us
yeah.
to do any sort of long line type of trip
Yeah.
at the beginning of the season.
Right.
It's just-
And when you go on these
forget
trips,
it.
you have no choice. It throws you into being a longliner. Usually you're running, a couple hundred traps. And if you want to catch fur, and I don't care how good a bait and lure you have, if you want to catch a lot of fur, you got to set a lot of traps.
And you will be looking at a lot of empty traps.
Oh yeah,
That's just the way it is.
You're going to check a lot of empty traps.
Yeah.
And there'll be days, some days it'll be better than others. It's like every other trap's got something in it, and that's great. But there's some fair weather days that you might check 50 traps and not catch anything, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Right,
But
right.
my wife every year
There's a mouse over there.
was there. My wife every year, she calls it my vacation when I go south, because I go for a month. And so last year she hopped on a flight and flew into Tupelo, and I went over and picked her up. And she came back to camp with us, and I rented her a car and everything. She got on the side-by-side with us, and she made it all day, one day. And she looked at me at the end of the day, and of course one side of her's all muddy from being in the side-by-side, and she says, I had no clue you worked this hard. She said, she said, I'll never call it your vacation again, and that's something else. If you get into this, you've got to have a good wife that'll stick with you. And by God, I'm married to a saint. I mean, she's put up with everything from clothes smelling like skunk to, just the normal trapping stuff. Real muddy clothes, and so yeah, you've got to be married to a saint to put up with this. So
that's kind of when everything is just, I guess, perspective on what you're there to do. But like when you take these trips, I mean, that's what you're there to do.
right.
So, I mean, it's like, I don't really want to be done by noon. I want to be done when it's getting dark.
Yeah.
So
we're sun up to sundown
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
I call it 4 days of hell, right off the bat. Any of my students that come down south with me, I tell them that you got 4 days of hell, and then you got 1 day of hell. And they're like, well, what's that? And I said, well, 4 days is getting the line out, getting it set up, and then the 1 day of hell is pulling. And usually you pull, like I pulled 140 traps the other day. Then you get in the pickup and you drive the 12 and a half hours to get home. By the time I go to get out of the truck, it's like, oh, you're
Catching
just
up with
sore.
it. Yeah.
And, it's a lot of work. And then you got to put traps away when you get home. And then you got to clean the side-by-side up, wash the trailer off, wash the truck. Everything's got red mud on it. It's just, if you look at the good and the bad, I mean, yeah, I used to catch a lot of cats and a lot of otters down there. And our state has, Michigan, we can only catch so many cats and so many otters. Down there, it's unlimited. So I'm able to bring that fur home and tan it, and the stuff that people aren't used to up by us.
Right.
And then, I make a little bit of money on it. So, but everything just keeps you going, between selling fur and selling bait and lure, and it keeps me busy all year. I don't quit. All year long, I'm doing something to do with trapping, putting up lure, tan fur, you name it. I'm doing something all year. Everybody says, when do you get done for the year? Well, I'm never done. So
That's what people ask us, what we do in our off season.
Yeah.
There is no off season.
There is no off
I mean, it might seem like there is. I mean, but it just changes. It just changes on what you're
Just like
doing.
there's your friend again.
different
Yeah.
line of work.
Yeah.
There's a mouse running around here we might have to skin out and sell on the market.
So you buy some fur too?
I do. I buy some at home. I've got a partner that helps me. My partner, Jim Galvis, helps me. He does most of the fleshing. I do most of the skinning. So when I skin stuff, I'll throw it in the freezer. And while I'm gone south, he'll be pulling beaver out and fleshing them and fleshing coon and everything. So he kind of keeps it rolling for me. Mm-hmm. And we've got 2 buildings now that we do our work in. And yeah, which the skull market has gotten hot, and that's something else. You trappers that are throwing all this stuff away, man, start saving the skulls, save your glands. People still buy all that stuff from you, and that it's not just going to a fur sale and selling all your fur, or going to the fur buyer and selling it. It's about, every little piece of that. I kind of joke, but every part of a skunk, the only part of the skunk that we don't use for making bait and lure is his squeal, basically. And if we can find a way to put that in a bottle, by golly, I'd do it.
Well, that's kind of like beavers too. I mean, you can
Absolutely.
You could probably find somebody to sell the tail to.
Yep.
Definitely find somebody to sell the skull to.
Yep.
You can sell the meat for sure.
Yes.
And then the castor.
Oil sacks.
It's pretty good money. It's very good money. It's fallen off a little bit this year.
Yep.
And then the oil sacks. So I mean that virtually, and then of course the skin.
Yep.
So virtually everything on a beaver is marketable except
Everything.
for the intestines. So.
Yep. Yeah, I even started saving the livers out of the beavers. I use that for catfishing later in the summer.
Okay,
and,
okay.
But that works pretty good. It's a little bit,
Spongy.
More firm.
well, it's more firm
Yeah.
than like beef liver or whatever. So when you do cut it in strips, it goes on a hook nice and it stays there. So I started saving all my beaver livers for that.
There's a
And,
good tip. So
Yeah.
well,
I learned
also the
something.
tails, the white gristle that's in there. Guys up north are using it for ice fishing. They're putting it on their ice. They're cutting it in the white inside the tail. They're cutting that into strips, putting it on a hook because it looks like a
bee moth.
wax worm.
Or bee moth. Or yeah, well, bee moth would be small.
And it's working really good. I've actually had a couple ice fishermen stop by the shop and say, "Hey, can I buy a beaver tail from you?" So
yeah.
yeah, everything, you got to make use of everything. And It just works.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's not just for money purposes, but it's just like the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do. I mean,
there's a resource there. Why waste it?
That's right. A lot of people will throw carcasses away, you know, and they'll have piles of them they'll get rid of, and I pretty much part everything out and use it for, you know, something in the bait and lure making. You know,
yeah. Well, I learned something for sure with the catfish, and I didn't know you started making lure that young too.
Yeah, I've been doing it
cool.
forever.
I was probably 16, 17 when I started making.
And I don't know whatever gets in your mind that you want to start catching. I guess a lot of it had to do with, and it takes a lot to make bait and lure. I mean, before you actually get to where it's working and you get it preserved right and everything, and it's a lot more work than people think, you know.
How many things have you blown up?
Yeah, I've had a few barrels blow up. Yeah,
It's
all have.
Yeah, it's like the baking soda vinegar volcano.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've done that more than I care to admit.
I know.
You know.
I know, we all have. And that's just part of it. You know, hopefully you're not around when that happens, because if one of them barrels explode, you're going to get some on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sadly, I have done even the taste test with some of the lures.
Oh, yeah, I think we all have.
It's bad.
And that is worse than when you're making a set and the trap snaps off and you get a mouthful of dirt.
Yeah.
The lure's worse.
Oh, yeah.
So when you're testing a lure, something new that you're working on, there's and this, I disagree with this. So there's lure makers that put something new together and they start testing, and they'll start testing the end of the summer or September. That's the wrong time of year.
Yeah.
The only time to test it is basically during the season.
During
you
the
just go
trapping
use
season.
it.
Absolutely. And there's stuff that works. And I have a for instance on that. I started, after my bull riding career, I got into raising bucking bulls, and of course, having 41 head of bucking bulls out in the pasture, I bought some cows, some old rank cows that nobody wanted that you could hardly keep in the fence. Bred them back to my bulls. Well, when they had their calves, I would go out there and collect the afterbirth, because I'd always see coyotes out there in the pasture digging at that afterbirth. So I saved that afterbirth, put it in a gallon jar and aged it down, and I ended up with a pretty good lure made out of afterbirth, and works great in cattle country. I mean, you can catch any coyote or fox around. Try that stuff up in northern Michigan, up in the UP, in the woods. Nothing wants anything to do with it.
Really?
Why? I can't answer that.
Because you would think just the curiosity of it would be
You would
enough.
think the curiosity, and that's basically what it is a food type curiosity lure.
Yeah.
But up there, I couldn't get anything to pay attention. But in cattle country, man, I still go back. I don't even make it anymore because, you know, I didn't want somebody to have that negative results, you know. And if they're in cattle country, I would definitely sell it to them. But if they were in the woods, So
Interesting.
Yeah.
There's a DVD out, Trapper Jack or Jake? Trapper Jake.
Okay, yeah.
Have you seen that?
I have.
And I think he's got a lure that's based on that, a rotted down. If I'm not
Afterbirth,
mistaken. Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he does.
Yeah,
So.
he's about 80 or 90.
He died. He did die, but he
yeah.
was in his 90s when they filmed that little
Yeah,
documentary style.
Little documentary.
Yeah.
He was a heck of a trapper.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, you know.
He was a bit of a character.
Yes, he was. Yeah. Yeah, they probably should have started filming him years ago. You know, 'cause
exactly.
I'm sure he was a wealth of knowledge and, you know, just a character, like you said.
So how long have you been going to trapper conventions?
I started in 98.
Okay.
Is when I started selling my stuff commercially, and I think 99 is when the Buick plant closed.
Okay.
And then I went full time doing, you know, going to conventions all summer long. I'll try to be at one. There's always a convention in different states you can go to. all summer long pretty much, and of course the closer you get to trapping season, the more guys buy bait and lure. Like the fur taker's a little bit early in the year.
Right.
So we don't sell a whole lot of bait and lure in June, but like starting of August, September, guys really start hitting you hard. And you got to bite the bullet. The ones that you don't do that good at, you're still getting your name out there. And you meet new people. I've met a lot of great people in this business. Some that are not so great, but I've met a lot of great people.
Yeah.
And it's just like a big family, just like the rodeo world. If say you had a bad day at the rodeo and broke your arm or something, there's always somebody there at the camp, and they'd say, "Hey Jim, have you had dinner yet? Come on over and have a hamburger." Same thing at the trapping conventions. Once they get to know you, it's like, "Hey, we got extra hamburgers here. Come on over." It's a magic world, is what it is, because these people are really good people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's. And I appreciate everybody that comes to a trappers convention, but the ones that don't necessarily, or they're only there for 3 or 4 hours and don't have the advantage of staying overnight or whatever, So.
Oh yeah, you got to experience it all. And we used to camp out. Me and my sons have all been to conventions with me, my kids, and but it just got to be, you get older and you get tired of getting up off the ground, you hurt. So now I'm more of a motel cowboy, I guess. And I usually require a hot tub at the hotel, so I can loosen up, because being on these cement floors all day when you're selling lure and stuff, I'll tell you what, my body aches at the end of the day, so there ain't nothing better than going back to the hotel and jumping in the hot tub. But
That's great.
yeah.
That's what when we take these trips, people goes, "Are you guys camping or what are you doing?" It's like, no.
Yeah,
We either line something up, we're staying at an inexpensive hotel, or
Yep.
it,
You've got to have that. After being in waiters all day, you're sweating, you got to have a shower at the end of the day.
I mean, you could do the whole camping experience, but you would be approaching that trip with a whole different outlook.
Yeah.
It'd be more of an experience, because that is really cutting into your efficiency and
That's
time.
time,
Right.
setting up camp, breaking down, worrying about cooking,
Yep.
getting washed up somehow, and just, it's way easier to hotel it.
I've done it. Like I said, up in
Yeah.
northern Michigan, when I take my camper, I do that, but I've got a buddy's house down the road, and he lets me come get a shower whenever I want, and that really helps.
I mean, a hunting camp is definitely different than a trapping.
Oh,
camping.
absolutely.
I mean, it just doesn't align as well.
Yeah, well, I've been to a couple trapping camps in northern Michigan and down in Mississippi where people tried to get me to stay, and you walk in and it's like rat infested and no running water, no electricity, and I'm like, I can't stay here. I'm sorry, I can't I've got to have a shower, I've got to have a clean place to make a meal, and you got to have a place to skin, you got to have a place to plug in freezers and all that stuff, but it's not the old style trapper. People think you can live just like an animal. You can't. You're out working your butt off. You got to have a place to take care of yourself. And
Right.
Well, I'm sure if the old school guys that did that, if they had the opportunity, they'd pick the hotel.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, they don't choose to live like that. That's for sure.
Right. I mean, it's all relative, So.
Right.
Yep.
But and the interesting thing is nowadays there are quite a few people that take a trip. to trap.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's not driven by the fur market. Or
No.
Clearly, it's not, because there is, So
My thing is, if you want to find out what kind of trapper you really are, I'm not saying I'm this great trapper. I'm not saying any of us are, but you want to find out what kind of trapper you are, go to a different state. And if you can, like me being from Michigan, dealing with snow and then mud and all that stuff, it really, and if you're working for somebody, you have to continuously show them progress. Show them the animals that you're taking, and it's, you got to make progress or it ain't worth doing it. But if you want to find out what kind of trapper you are, go to a different state.
Right.
I don't care where you go, but go there and try it.
Yeah.
And you're going to find out what kind of trapper you are.
To me, I enjoy that challenge.
I do too.
New geography.
When you're at home, you got to pay bills. You got to, you got to pay bills no matter where you're at, but the worries of the day are off of me when I go down south. All I have to do is trap. That's my job.
Right.
And that's what I do, and it makes things so much better.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we run into that when we try to trap around home.
yeah.
So it's kind of like, let's get this done so we can get back and work.
Right.
Whereas once you leave, you're
Right.
gone.
Right.
And that's what you do. So
Yep. That's the only girlfriend I'll ever have, and my wife knows that. And she said, "Yeah, that's your first love, that's for sure." So,
So you're more of a water trapper, more of a land trapper than a
I
water
like
trapper?
doing it all.
Yeah.
I love doing it all. When my coyote traps aren't working, when the weather turns too warm or whatever, and the coyotes don't want to move, I've usually got otter and beaver traps blocking down every stream within a 100-mile radius where I'm at, and so you're always catching something, and I like that. That's another thing too. I probably shouldn't say this because I'm shooting us all in the foot here, but it ain't all about baited and lured sets. I put in a lot of blind sets along with my baited and lured sets. I'll find a nice trail that's got coyote tracks on it or bobcat tracks on it, and I'll put a trap in, on a blind trail. And it seems like when they're not moving, when they're not trying to find food, that's the day that if it gets warmer when I'm down south, sometimes the animals they're not hungry, and you'll catch them in the blind trail sets. So you're always putting fur in the buggy,
We ran into that this year in Arkansas. It was the first 2 days were good check days, and then the next 2 days were pretty light, and then it got real light.
Yeah.
But it got so warm, and we were late into February, so it was. But it was. There was one evening when we went to bed, it was 71 degrees, and we got up the next morning, it was basically the same temperature. Nothing happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
So and you have no control over that.
No.
You
have no control over the weather, and there's times down there it might rain for 3 days, and the river will come up 6 feet, and that's no joke.
Yeah.
All my 330s and that I block the streams down with, I try to put 15 or 20 foot 1/8 inch cable on them, and I cable off to a tree up taller than I can reach, and that way I don't lose any traps. I think all the years going down there, 13 years going to Mississippi, I lost one trap, and I caught the landowner's dog, and he took the trap back up to his cabin, and of course I got it back from him, and it didn't hurt the dog at all. He just said, "Well, I wasn't sure if it was yours or not, and but that's something that happens, something you got to deal with. But anyways,
Yeah. Well, it's been great talking to you.
it's always great
always a
talking with
pleasure.
you guys.
You got
Any
any
final
conclusion that you want to?
I don't. I'm glad to help you guys out coming down to your rendezvous there, and that's about all I got to say.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, contact any of us, me, Charlie, or Justin. We'd be glad. We help people out all the time. I take guys down south all the time. And we're glad to help.
And Jim has a website, like you said, but you can talk to him on social media as far as Facebook. He's got a Facebook
I got a
page.
Facebook page for Wolfen Bait and Lure, and I have a personal page. And the only thing is, with the antis and stuff anymore, we like to scan the people's photos when they send us a friend request, and if they don't have any trapping or hunting pictures, we usually don't accept them. So if you want to get on one of our pages or something, you might want to either call us ahead of time, which my phone number's on there and everything, and just say, "Hey, I'm going to be sending you a friend request, be looking for it," and like if you don't have any trapping pictures on there, because we don't let too many people in unless, you know.
You're legit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we've all run into that where antis basically just pile on a page, and
Yeah.
you know, it'll. We had, I think, on one of our pages, we had to take the reviews off, or where you had a review, because it was just.
Yeah.
That was a few years ago, but it was like
Yeah.
once they get onto it, it's like a bleeding chicken, and the rest of them are all picking on it. I mean, you know,
That's
they just
right.
keep piling on, you know.
A
So
feeding frenzy.
Yeah,
And you know, they've shut down a couple different states in trapping, and they're after our trapping rights, every state that we have. So I know the fur prices are low, and a lot of you guys might let your membership lapse. Man, right now it's so important to stay with these associations to help keep our trapping rights, you know, and do what's right. And we need your help. I mean, it's getting pretty bad. I've seen a lot of stuff, and they're really the antis and everything are really trying to beat on us right now. They know what's going on with the low fur prices and everything, and not that much support. So,
and I honestly believe that if it wasn't for FTA, NTA, Sportsman's Alliance, we wouldn't be doing this.
that's right.
I mean, it would have been over before now.
If it wasn't for those people going to court and fighting for our rights, we would, yeah.
We would not be where we're at right now.
Yep.
So it would be much. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been good. Catch us on the next one, and stop by at a convention or show and say hi to all of us. So
Yep.
we'll see you later.